It's interesting, this thing that disaster does, because it really does make you into a different person, or even a different thing, I'd argue. W.E.B. Du Bois wondered back in 1903, how does it feel to be a problem? You can keep on going there. One more click. And in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, it was the fundamental question that we asked about ourselves, about the entire city. Because the question was, do you rebuild it? How do you rebuild it? Is it worth it? Are these people even citizens? They're living in a place that's below water, below sea level. And we were America's problem. And I dare say that in some respects, unfortunately, because of the disasters that have happened around the country, and particularly because of the disaster that has happened here in New Jersey and in New York, this question extends not only to people in New Orleans, but also to our dear friends here in New Jersey. So this question about whether or not a community is a problem is an age-old and quite historic and important question. Anyone who's familiar with Du Bois' work knows that much of his work centers around this question. So I'm going to show you guys a really disturbing image. And I want you to take a second and look at this image, and I'm preparing you because, again, this is a very difficult to look at image. This is an American lynching. So tell me what you see that's interesting about this image, other than the fact that this is a lynching.
People are smiling.
There's some people in the front who are smiling. What else? It's a social gathering. You know, if you look at, there's a couple who you can see slightly off to the left, and this picture is overexposed a bit, but there's a woman who looks like she's in a polka dot dress and she's holding a guy's hand. They're essentially on a date. So here's my other question for you. Who in this image is a citizen and who is not a citizen?
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody's a citizen. I think sometimes history doesn't teach the full lesson about lynching in America, and I think people presume that lynching is something that happened during slavery that was cured once slavery ended. But of course that's untrue. During slavery, lynching was a terrible business mistake because people owned slaves, and you were wasting your property if you killed your slave. But so this is really a phenomenon after slaves become citizens that occurs across the entire nation. And it gets to, I think, the heart of Du Bois' concern about this basic issue of what is it to be a problem. And you know, there's a lot of debate about citizenship in this country today. Frankly, every single day we're asking who should be a citizen. How do we deal with immigrants who don't have legal documentation? And it's amazing that the thing that they're fighting for, this fundamental citizenship opportunity, is one that hasn't always been respected. And in fact, we have over and over again found that our citizens oftentimes are the problem. And so the question for all of us in this room is, when you were the problem, what do you do? And so what I seek to do today is to tell you about how in New Orleans and in Louisiana we have addressed our problem status. And sometimes we've been successful, and sometimes we've not been successful. So we're going to change, I think, or hopefully lighten the room here a bit. So I'm going to show you a picture of two people who I think almost everyone in the room should know. And what I need you to do is to tell me what these two people have in common. George W. Bush and Kanye West. Not that order. This is Kanye next. So what do these guys have in common, and why the heck would I include them in this presentation? Money. They're both rich. I heard that a bunch of times.
Katrina.
Yes, Katrina.
Their response to Katrina.
Their response to Katrina. Well, actually, I mean, that's true, but the thing that so they have that in common, that's right. And so tell me what they have in common about Katrina and their response.
One felt he did a good job, the other felt he didn't care.
So, it's quite amazing because George W. Bush, after having served as president, appeared on the Today Show with Matt Lauer. And Matt Lauer, after having read his book, said, I was really struck by the point in the book where you say that the lowest moment in your time serving as president was the moment that Kanye West called you a racist. And, now, even though I'm a person who has been heavily affected by Hurricane Katrina, my first response was, really? Kanye West? That was your low point, Mr. President? I mean, because 9/11 was pretty bad. There was the Abu Ghraib scandal. There's a list, right? You can go on. All these different moments that completely changed America. And I want to be clear, he wasn't even saying that Katrina itself was the low point. He was saying that being called a racist by Kanye West was the low point. So here's one of the things that's amazing about that to me. The first is that it's so different from that image that I showed you, where people were engaging in the most egregious racism that you can consider, right? Where they're actually murdering citizens by hanging them from a tree. And there's no embarrassment, right? In fact, they're posing for the camera. They're embarrassed to be racist. I was shocked one day when my wife asked in one of her classes, has anything changed around race in the last 100 years? And her students said, no, nothing's changed. It's all the same. But of course it's different, right? Of course we've seen incredible progress, because in that image of the lynching, it was in style to engage in discrimination. In egregious, heinous discrimination that most of us in this room can't even imagine. But at this moment, the lowest point for a person who was arguably the most powerful person in this entire world was the point at which he was publicly called a racist. So it means that there has been dramatic change. But I'd argue that it makes some very difficult problems for all of us in this room. Because it's really easy to fight a problem or to fight a target when people are really clear about where they stand. But we all know that all the folks that we work to represent, to support, to take care of are harmed all the time, and that people make policies that affect them negatively all the time. But most of the time, they don't say that. Instead, they talk about how much they care about people, how much they want to help the communities that we're concerned about, and how committed they are to them. But they pass policies that do just the opposite. They do just the opposite.